it wasn't until I was, I guess, in my 40s that I realized, oh, when you challenge conventional wisdom, you're challenging the core foundation of many people's careers. They've built a career on an idea that you've just demonstrated is wrong. Of course, they're angry. I wrote a paper in 2000 called The Death of the Risk Premium, in which I showed that TIPS had a yield of 4.3, S&P had a yield of 1.1. TIPS had income and principal rise with CPI. Stocks had income that rises with CPI plus 1 or 2% historically. So tacitly, that meant that the earnings and dividends on stocks had to rise at least 3.2% over and above inflation per annum for stocks just to match dull, simple TIPS. And I wrote Death of the Risk Premium saying this was not plausible and your starting point valuations matter and the risk premium at the moment is dead. There will be no risk premium for the long-term equity investor from these market levels. I pointed out in my closing paragraph, like the phoenix, the risk premium can come back from the dead, but the process of coming back from the dead is revaluation downward to levels that produce a higher yield, or for bonds to perform brilliantly so that their yield comes down. And if you have that happen, the risk premium can come back to life. And about 4 years later, I was at the Q conference and I was chatting with a guy about finance theory and whatnot. And I said, how's life? And at one point he paused and he said, by the way, I should tell you, I no longer hate you. And I thought, what? I had no idea you hated me. Why did you hate me and why do you not hate me now? And he said, well, you wrote Death of the Risk Premium and I'd built my career on the notion of a positive risk premium. And I was livid that you would suggest that the risk premium didn't exist. And I said, so why don't you hate me now? And he said, you were right.
And hence you became friends.
Well, we didn't see each other much after that, but it was eye-opening to realize, okay, people can get really angry if you challenge their thinking. The funny thing about contrarian investing is I'm not inherently a contrarian. I don't look for things to argue with, things to disagree about. I look to learn.
Yeah.
And so it comes from curiosity, not from just a contrary nature. If somebody says, here's how the world works, I'll ask the question, has this been tested? And if it hasn't been, I'll test it. And if it turns out to be right, great. Okay. Conventional wisdom is often right. And I get a little paper out of it that's not terribly surprising. And if it's wrong, I get a paper out of it that makes people angry and that challenges conventional wisdom. But it's all from a perspective of curiosity, not just inherent contrarian
Yeah, it's
nature.
not about being provocative for the sake of it, but really, as you were
Yeah,
saying, out of
exactly.
curiosity. You've reached the end of this clip, but the story is not over. To watch the full episode, follow this link. Go on. You can do it.